Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Mase. You can find me on Twitter at CaliKing49er17. You're locked into the IDP Center YouTube page. Today, I'm talking NFC teams pre-draft 2026, looking at the rosters. The man next to me, Steve, the real IDP, Hunter Hungardner. How you doing today, brother from another mother?
I'm doing good. You got to get that real in there. Remember, I got hacked this offseason. Real IDP Hunter. Don't go to the other guy asking advice. No guarantee if that's going to work out.
Probably try to get you to click a link and take over your profile. So make sure you hit the REAL beforehand. I guess we just jump right into it, man. So before we get into any actual teams, what are some things that you look for when you're evaluating a depth chart this early in the season?
Well, it's hard this early in the season. So what I'm trying to get is steady eddies. I'm trying to look for balance. I'm trying to look for scheme. Players that can rise, that have maybe been in the system before, like we're going to see today, or maybe some really interesting free agents. There's a couple teams on here, one particular I'm thinking, that has a new coaching scheme, and they have two new players that have always had the PFF analytics. They just never got the snap count. They just never got the time. So I'm excited to talk to you about, coaching schemes, depth charts, and, if we have time also, I'd like to add, team needs since the draft is coming up.
Yeah, for sure. You said rising to the top. Maybe think about Macho Man Randy Savage. The cream definitely rises to the top. So I had to put my favorite team up front, getting close and personal with the 49ers defense here. I'll just let you dive in. What are you seeing here? I see Nick Bosa. He's a household name. Fred Warner coming back from injury, but he doesn't have any restrictions going into offseason. What are some needs here?
There's some interest here because if you look at this team overall, they were a top 20 defense. They started off the year pretty strong. They had a good schedule, and out of 20 defense pass rushing, they were 11th. So that wasn't necessarily the problem, but the pass defense, they were 25th. So they need a little work on the defensive backs, but particularly at the roster you're showing me right now, I think a glaring need for them is on the defensive line, especially at defensive tackle. We noticed when Nick Bosa went down with the ACL, the team kind of lost their way a little bit. So a stud inside would go a long way. In this team's new system that they got coming in, this new defensive scheme, you're going to see a lot of what we call in the industry a tight end. Raheem Morris is your new coordinator. He's going to start on a 4-3, shift to a 3-4. He'll put a guy over the center. Like I was telling you before we came on air, those defensive tackles are going to go 4-eye. They're going to shift inside, which is going to leave a lot of one-on-one play with the defensive end. So a healthy Nick Bosa is the answer here. A healthy Nick Bosa is going to go a long way on this depth chart.
Yeah, so last year, just as a guy who watched the Niners every week, that pass rush was big part of the reason why the Niners struggled, exposed a lot of the secondary, and then the Niners had a lot of issues, linebacker as well. So they did spend a third-round pick last year on Nick Martin. I think that was a guy that Robert Saleh really liked, who's now the head coach of the Titans. So I don't think the Niners will be targeting that at all. Maybe another safety for them or a corner, but corner's kind of boring for IDP, or at least what we're talking about. An outside guy is probably what they're going to be looking at. They just got up to stout last year. Anything else you want to add about this Niners team before we move?
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to move on to the Bears here. They've kind of been building something these last couple of years. The offense really woke up. So looking at the defense, Montez Sweat kind of runs the line there. TJ Edwards, they bring in Devin Bush. He gets a multi-year contract fresh out of Cleveland. What do you think is a major need for the Bears?
So fun fact, you said Montez Sweat, okay? Take the last 2 years together, combine them together. We have 50, he's had 100 pressures. 53 last year alone. He's had 15.5 sacks in those 2 years. He's been phenomenal. Even though he's a little older, he's a buy for me just on the way he's been playing. He can use somebody quality on the other side if I'm looking at team needs. A better defensive end. I know you have a couple sleepers in mind, but a couple defensive ends on this roster can help, maybe Montez Sweat maintain that double-digit performance. That's a big team need. Total defense, 29th. Rushing 27th, passing 22nd. It doesn't look like that on film because they're more like a bend but don't break defense. You'll see them generate a lot of fumbles, turnovers, interceptions. They do give up a lot of yards. So there's a lot of pieces here they can play around with. maybe get a little younger. But I'd say defensive end, defensive tackle are the glaring needs.
Yeah, I agree with you full-heartedly there. Austin Booker's a name, and we've kind of talked about the last couple of years as a guy who could come in flourishing after a couple of years in, but I think he's more of a rotational pass rusher piece still at this point in his career. So it would be really nice to see them spend maybe some capital on that side of the ball early in the draft. Anything else you want to talk about on this defense before we move along?
Not really. There's a couple people that left in free agency, like I said, that were just fumble turnovers. They're going to need a little more this year. Maybe get a little younger at linebacker because that was musical chairs last year. But, yeah, that's what I'm thinking with this team. I don't really look at the stats because they were a turnover machine last year. But you know and I know that's fluky each year.
Well, yeah, the safeties got picked by other teams as well. You can see new guys there, Kobe Bryant, Cam Lewis. I mean, Gordon, Johnson, Stevenson are really good at ball hawking, so I can't camp that out. But as we both know, and as the viewers probably know as well, if you're a every week viewer of the show, then you know that interceptions are pretty random as far as stats go compared to any other stat in the NFL on that side of the ball. Shout out to Jack Sanborn going back home, Chicago. Don't think he actually plays really, though, which sucks. But we'll move along to a team that I like a lot because I write about them, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man. Open it up with Vita Vea, who, I mean, if you're in true position leagues, then, you might have him. Otherwise, you might not. So want to give him a shout. They are really struggling, I think, at the edge position. They're playing musical chairs, as you said, at linebacker. And I don't really know what's going on with their secondary. So what are you thinking here for IDP purposes when it comes to the Buccaneers?
Yeah, you kind of said it. Total defense, they're 19th, right? Rushing defense, they were 5th. So they got a quality up front. They've been quality there. And in defensive pass, 27th. They've been kind of getting over the last couple of years because this division wasn't necessarily quality. I think the wheels fell out this year. They got caught. They might get caught again this year if they don't fix a couple things. Now, even though I said they're really good against the run, defensive line help would be nice. That's they could have drafted better the last couple of years as far as the defensive line help. But I feel like that's a pressing need outside of the guys we know. Who do they got there? I'm trying to read your screen. They got Cansey. They got Vita Vea. Who's your other name? Is it Logan? No, it's Ashawn Robinson. See, I don't even know these guys. Like, these aren't IDP startable.
They're bringing in rotational guys, camp battles. The signs are on the wall here. As you like to say, the tea leaves have been read. They are drafting edge early, and I think they'll probably double up and take a guy in the middle or late round as well. At least they should.
I say edge, and then also, like you said, the situation at linebacker. If you've been holding on to your voice, say Dennis, I think he's cooked. I think they're moving on. If you look at their transitions right now, I mean, they brought in Ruse Boom, and more importantly, they brought in Alex Anzalone, who, as you've already eloquently put, he's the LB1 there. He's going to be the green dot.
Yeah, for sure. Getting real IDP Hunter to say cooked with the Gen Z slang, man, that's the price of admission. Yes, chef. So Christian Roseboom, real quick, I want to touch on that. Had a couple people, I dropped him in a league. It was like, it's a really not so dense league, so there's only 2 linebacker positions that I could possibly have. But people are like, well, you dropped in Roseboom, he did really good last year. Well, so did Devin White, and he's not on a roster. We can see right here, Roseboom is the 3rd guy. That's just in case Anzalone, either gets hurt or maybe they rotate them out a little bit, and that'll end up dipping into Anzalone's money there for you in IDP purposes. But I'm not a fan of Roseboom this year. You agree?
Yeah, I agree. And in regards to him and Dennis, they're going to vampire each other. They're both the same, similar kind of players. I'm not really chasing that many players on this roster. Even like, who do we got here? We got Diaby. He's year 3. Decent force off the edge. What did he do? He led the team with 7 sacks, 10 forced fumbles. He's more of a deeper player to me. I'm looking at other guys at that edge position. So if we can get somebody on a deeper, a higher pedigree and put them next to these players, I think that can help this overall team.
Yeah, for sure. It's a make or break year for a couple of these guys. I know Tampa Bay, just from press conferences and stuff, I'm kind of getting the vibes so far, not to quote anyone because there's really been no quotes, but I think Jacob Parrish is going to be a bigger part of the defense this year as well from Nickelback. So I'm looking for things from him. But like you said, the wheels did fall off like post week 9. You had a lot of injuries to the line, AC joint sprain for Baker Mayfield. Coaching wasn't really the same. I don't know, just really weird vibes at the back end of the year. Mike Evans left as well. So I could talk about Tampa Bay all day. I digress. We will move on to the Arizona Cardinals. Tell us about this team. They are, as Elvis likes to say, all shook up. What's going on here? I mean, is Mac Wilson and Cody Simon, are they really going to be the two linebackers?
I think long-term it's Cody Simon. Is it guaranteed set in stone this year? Probably not. I think there's going to be a little bit more of what we've seen last year. Preseason is going to be to tell. I remember going on a show with football guys, John Norton. He was big on the Cody Simon. He was going to train. I was like, dude, you got to watch preseason where these guys line up. I was getting hot with the Mac Wilson, and that was a cheap pick for me. The Cardinals can do a lot of things. If you look at them, 27th overall in defense. Against the run, they were 25th. Against the pass, they were 24th. There's a whole lot of mess here. Outside of Budda Baker, who the heck do you pick? I like the safety. I like the new starter they have because Thompson left. I don't know how you say that name, Dadrian.
Taylor Demerson.
Yeah, you got it. I like him there. Those are sneaky moves because teams like this are going to get dinked and dunked on all the time. Outside linebacker is a good team need. They need somebody attacking from the outside as a priority. And Josh Sweat is always sneaky good, right? He's a great fit in a similar scheme, but how long can you play him for? So he's a great redraft asset, maybe not in Dynasty. That's really it. That's really all I use on this team. How about you?
Yeah, I think that they could draft any position essentially but safety. There are a couple of safeties though in the second round, Nikhil Warren and then Thieneman, who they could pick up. But I mean, honestly, they could use anything. And I don't know if I saw it. Maybe I dreamt it, Josh Sweat wanting to trade. But honestly, by week 6, he'll probably want one. Because I don't. You've got the Super Bowl champions there. I'm going to be biased here because of my Niners and be like, they're going to be running for it. And you already know the McVay-led Rams are going to be, one of the front runners in the NFC. So I would just say throw darts, kind of see how they play the linebacker position during the draft. And if they don't, wait till all the linebackers are gone and then kind of in those later rounds, throw a dart on Wilson and Simon and see what sticks.
Walter Nolan, I mean, I don't play too many defensive tackles. This is a required league. He had a pretty promising rookie season, too. I mean, I don't want to get that deep with this, but you know what? He only had 6 games, 169 snaps. They want him to be a guy. He ended up with 2 sacks, 5 tackles for loss. It's not nothing to sneeze at. You ready for this? He had 2 pass defenses. I don't know where they came from, but he defended the pass. So, points are points.
Breaking it up on the line, and we love free cookies. Yeah, man, honestly, looking at their lineup, you said that. They got Nolan, and then before that, they got Darius Robinson. So those are 2 guys that kind of fell in drafts, but they end up swooping them up. So maybe they can get something there. They do, run more down linemen and have the outside guys going. Zaven Collins, dude, sticking around. Love the inconsistency.
I was waiting for you to waste airtime on Zaven Collins. It was the
he's so consistently inconsistent, dude. Gotta give him a shot. All right, we're gonna talk about the Washington Commanders, who new jerseys are pretty fire. Talking to Jorge at Fantasy and Frames about that. I think he's loving the vibes there, giving homage to the previous teams. But moving on, something not looking too promising. One of their defensive ends as a starter is Javon Kinlaw. One thing that is really good, though, they got Leo Chenal, and I think he's going to be a great full-time linebacker there. Nick Cross, also an addition at safety. If you play IDP, he's kind of been a gem the last couple of years. What are you seeing here, Steve?
Yeah, I want to stay here a minute, okay? Because this team got a new defensive coordinator. It's got a new scheme. This is kind of exciting to me to look at. So the new defensive coordinator, and hopefully I'm not butchering his name, Daronte Jones, Daronte Jones, okay? He plays a lot of nickel, a lot of 4-2-5. You'll see split safeties. Now, he's coming over from Minnesota Vikings. So people are automatically thinking he's going to – what's that?
So very nice. Sorry, they're like one of the big schemes right now.
But people are going to think that that's his scheme. But you ready for this? He's not. He's part of that coaching scheme, but he's been in the league for years. He has worked under guys like Vance Joseph, Marvin Lewis, Mike Zimmer, Brian Flores. So he's not going to be addicted to one side of the scheme or another. So it's going to be hard to predict what he's doing next. But this guy's been around forever. Likes to cover 2s, likes to cover 4s. He's going to have these guys. Anybody who's in a position to make strong tackle production. You mentioned Leo Chenal. He's going to have people coming from the edge, which is exciting to me. This team needs a lot. Total defense, 32nd.
Woof.
Against the pass, 28th. Against the run, 30th. They can go a lot of places. My two sleepers, you already said it. They need somebody on the edge to do something. So look for Owe, and then at linebacker, Chanel. These are PFF players that have high analytics, high scores, high grades, but they've never quite put it together. They've never quite had the snap count before, the time. They're going to get it this year on this team, on this scheme. Both of those guys are buy lows, and I've been trying to pick them up everywhere I can. But pay attention to this scheme. If it works out right, edge rushers and linebackers should maintain great production just the way that they're going to set this thing up. So I'm excited.
Yeah, no, same. One keynote I want to add before we move on to I almost said the other name, the Commanders' rival, the Cowboys. Mike Sandstrill, I still can't say his name right, but he is moving to outside. So if you're looking for those points, be careful. Look at the camp battle. See if he's actually going to play there opposed to the nickel sliding in. They got a Meek Robinson there. Maybe they bring in someone else as well to kind of compete, another late-round guy if they eventually want to move in. So final thoughts on the Commanders? You ready to move on, brother?
No, we're ready to move on. You nailed it on the head, and that's another coaching scheme. I'd like to talk about them a little bit as well with the Cowboys.
Well, come with me if you want to live. Let's talk about the Cowboys, man. I know I'm throwing all these quotes at you. I know you're loving it, man.
So with the Cowboys, we all know they had a great offense. The defense is suspect. They were 30th. Against the run, they were 23rd. Against the pass, they were dead last, 32nd. So that's where they're going to want to go. They're going to want to go secondary. But how early are you going to go secondary? Because you can also use an edge rusher. So expect early picks over there. Dallas is bringing in a guy, their new defensive coordinator. His name is Christian Parker. He used to be part of the Vic Fangio coaching tree. One thing his schemes do is he's what's called the defensive back guru. He's made Pat Surtain an all-pro, Justin Simmons a Pro Bowl. He disguises defenses with 3-4 fronts. He'll do a little nickel. We all do nickel nowadays, but he's known as a defensive back guru. And as I just said, that safety position was 32nd in the NFL. So if you're reading the tea leaves, whoever plays safety for this team is probably in for a big year. Now, I got I just mentioned whoever that rookie is they pick up, good for him. Keep an eye out, folks. Free agent, and Mase picked him up in one of our leagues. Jalen Thompson, he had 568 box snaps for the Cardinals in 2025. He's a strong fit for this kind of defense. So I'm expecting him and whatever incoming rookie they bring in to be a must-own in fantasy football leagues.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. He's also a guy that can carry the green dot. We see a lot of turnover, instability at the linebacker position, and they can bring another guy or two as well. But if they, see that they don't like what they see, or if Overshown gets injured again or whatever, because I don't know. I think they want Overshown to play. I don't know if they are really as invested in James. I mean, 5th-round pick. He ended up kind of blossoming for him last year. But like you said, that defense, insanely chaotic. Rashawn Gary, hopefully he gets 70 pressures and at least double-digit sacks this year. But aside from that, I think I'm more excited for the players to come than I am the players on the roster. Give Donovan Ezekiyari a shout as well. He was one of the back-end touted, tier 1, tier 2 edges from last year's class. So
yeah, keep an eye on this scheme, though, because I kind of like it. We said Vic Fangio. We also worked with Mike Pettine, Evero, the Panthers. So he has that flexible. It's going to be kind of a hybrid scheme, but expect heavy use of dime, which is where defensive backs thrive. 5-man looks, because that's what the NFL is. It's a simulated passing league now. What we're talking about is commonly described as the Fangio shell. But yeah, he's going to try to get the most he can out of that safety position. Probably hold on to what he has at linebacker and at least bring in one edge. That's what I think is going to happen. We'll see. Anything's possible now. It's not Thursday yet, right?
For sure, man. Anything can happen on Thursday, 100%. Ask Laramie Tunsil, right? With the old the old gas mask routine coming out. No, I don't, dude. Honestly, this week there's noise about McCoy all of a sudden falling out of the first round. It's around that time where the rumors start going. I've heard that Jeremiah Love might be going to the Cardinals. Like, bro, they just brought in Algier. They spent a pick on Benson. They paid Connor. Like they could literally draft any other position. And the Cardinals quarterback wants to get paid like he's the first string, and I don't know if they want to do it. What if they draft Ty Simpson? Okay, I digress. Anyways, we're going to fly on over because Fly Eagles fly to the Philadelphia Eagles. We got names like Mora, Jomo, Jalen Carter, and Davis holding down the center. Is this Nolan Smith's year? Who knows? We got Zach Bond, John Campbell, early pick there. Bond getting paid like he's an early pick. Jalix Hunt, like him as a deeper name. What are you seeing here, bro?
So this team was 13th on defense. Pass defense was 22nd. I'm sorry, against the pass was 8th. Against the run was 22nd. Ooh. Something happened on that defensive line. I don't know what it is, but here's a stat for you, and I'll let you interpret it at home, okay? Remember they had that historic 2022 season where they had 4 guys with double-digit sacks? Mm-hmm. Okay? They haven't had a player with double-digit sacks since then. So that just goes to show you something's going on with this rotation defensive line. They're going to have to figure it out. Now, you asked me, is this old dude's year? I don't know. I'm not taking a chance. I want somebody else to take Nolan Smith. I love the potential. Let somebody else do it. I'll take somebody else. I would love this year. This isn't a team need. This is more of a selfish thing. How cool would it be if they took another cornerback? Can you imagine that? If they had Cooper on one side, Mitchell on another corner? This draft class is deep, so that's not really a team need. I can see them. They need another wide receiver, tight ends. I can see that. But can you imagine that if they went cornerback? That'd just be fun. But looking at this roster, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it needs to be coached up a little bit more,
Yeah, they do have some developing to do. Nolan Smith, on the topic of him, the Eagles signed Jalen Phillips, or traded for him last year, and then couldn't, re-sign him this year. And I think they were looking to do that. He ended up going to the Panthers ultimately, see what they're building over there. But I think they are going to add an end there. And like you said, corner is so deep. I'm sure someone will fall to Howie Roseman. Roseman always gets a player to fall to him. And as a Niners fan, I kind of crash out in my living room. So I'm looking forward to that yearly tradition to keep going. I mean, they'll just look and see. They'll probably end up getting like CJ Allen because he's Georgia, or someone like that. They love those Georgia guys.
They love Georgia.
Anything else before we move over to another bird, the Falcons?
No, I'm fine. Let's go ahead and move.
Okay. We're going to slide it on over to the Falcons, man. Looked like they had some edges for the future there. Maybe now it's kind of a one-sided ordeal. Christian Harris gets added via free agency. They do need interior help. They did a one-for-one swap, Mason Swift for Rook Ortho, I think. If I'm not, I sound like Scooby-Doo when I try to say his name. I'm so sorry. I completely butcher it. What are you thinking here for these guys, the Falcons?
You kind of already said it. When you look at total defense 15th, defensive against the run 24th, and against the pass 13th. They were actually good early in the year. A lot of people forget that. First 5 games, they were like top 5 in most defensive defensive categories. But the wheels came off. And I think where they really need help is defensive tackle, maybe like a true nose tackle, which this class is loaded with 0 techs, 1 techs, whatever. So maybe they do that. I kind of like what they've got out of this team production-wise. Divine Diablo came out of nowhere. Christian Harris is a buy for me because I'm not scared of Troy Anderson, and I'm not scared of whatever else they put there. And Diablo himself is always getting hurt. So that's a sneaky one on a lot of rosters people aren't looking at. So I got him in my LB Dynasty top 50, whatever. And there's a couple names here. The secondary. I'm not going to beat a dead horse on that. But those are the ones people get. Keep an eye on Jalen Walker. Somebody's going to have to get the pressure into sacks now. So Walker is also a buy for me.
Yeah, for sure. Make sure you monitor the James Pierce situation. Not really sure what's going on with that. So Dynasty owners kind of not sure what's going on us either. Stay tuned for that. A lot of people like Xavier Watts, but I still think it's the Jesse Bates show. I don't know. I mean, I'm not taking Jesse Bates as the DB4 in redraft or whatever, but definitely keeping an eye on him as well. But I'm not going to lie, man. I like Troy Anderson. He's one of those dandies that came out of the combine, former quarterback. Looked really good on tape, but from a smaller school. If you can't beat out Divine Diablo and Christian Harris for a spot, you're probably not going to make it out anywhere. So definitely something to see there. Would it take it away from them to add maybe a back end linebacker out of that first, second tier of guys in the draft? What do you think about that?
So one comment what you said with Bates. Bates is a fine player, very fine player. People are still drafting him as like a DB 3 or 4. That's not what he is now. He's probably a DB 10. So right now the consensus in leagues is he's getting overdrafted. This linebacker core, I'm very much interested in to see who achieves. I'm going with Harrison Diablo. Again, it's early. That's who I'm looking at. I'm tired of Troy Anderson. Fool me once, shame on you, but fool me twice. And as far as the D-line goes, I don't trust it. I don't trust it yet. You look at the names that you have on that screen. Dorless had a little bit of a run. Chris Williams, Ben Stell. I don't trust any of that. Who else is over there? Mason Smith. I'm not even giving those guys enough camera time. I'm not going to do it. Until somebody shows me something, I'm not going to say. I'm not going to waste the time in the podcast talking about them.
Yeah. Samson Ekebom, if you are in like a super, super, super deep best ball, I would throw a dart there in the later rounds for sure. But, yeah, if you want to win, you got to be tough, right? Kevin O'Shea said it best. Moving on to the Giants. What are we thinking here? Brian Burns had a great year last year. Tremaine Edmonds coming over from the Bears to lead it. Micah McFadden, is he still a linebacker too? Tyler Nubin, will he finally evolve? Are they going to get a safety? What says you, Steve?
So I want to kind of hang out here a little bit because there's a lot of transition. There's a lot of early draft picks. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of this team building. Whatever was wrong with the Giants, which by the numbers, they were 31st against the run, there's a glaring need. And against the pass, they were 16th. Overall, they were 28th, right? Whatever is wrong with the Giants, it's not this drafting. It's not this scouting team. They've done a really good job. So now, there's a little bit of an overhaul. Now they're bringing in new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson. And I'm going to say also Jim Harbaugh, okay? Those two are joined at the hip. Harbaugh, like I've told you before, right? He's a top 5 defense. He's had 5 times in the last 18 seasons in the NFL. That's pretty impressive. 5 times the last 18 years. He's got a proven track record. And I know what people say. They're like, Steve, it's not the head coach, it's what the coordinator can do. Well, this defensive coordinator has worked with Harbaugh before. He's been in the same locker room as him. They know how they want to work this. So this is a defensive scheme that's maybe not going to be noticeable on tape, but 2 things stand out on all the teams they have. They want a bully. They want a physical bully linebacker. If not 1, look for 2. Whoever that guy is in the middle of the field, from a structural standpoint, they're going to want to attack, hit, see ball, hit ball, crush the ball, right? They want an elite presence like fingerprints. The DNA is all over this team. He runs a lot of cover 3, cover 4, a lot of match zone. Zone is his thing. He wants to push the quarterback to make bad throws over the middle so his players can deliver bone-crushing hits. So I'm saying all this to tell you, whatever rookie linebacker they take, shock the nation, I'm interested in him, and I'm also interested in that little free agent they brought in, Tremaine Edmonds. I think he's going to be a nice little position add that a lot of IDP leagues, a lot of IDP they're not really talking about yet. Those are the 2 players I'm looking at.
Yeah, for sure. I think also between Newman and Holland, they could split time both above and below, depending on what side of the field, what package they have. Holland, I think, had just under 20 pressures his rookie year in 2021, so he can be used in that capacity. And I don't know, I feel like they're going to look for an answer for Newman because he got his feet wet a little bit in pressures last year, but I'd like to see a little bit more there. Anything else from this team before we move on?
Yeah. So with Newman, I said this on the Dynasty show. He's better when he's a ball hawk type player because he was brought in to be like the Xavier McKinney, the whatever of this team. He was brought in to do that. Instead, they're making him play closer to box. He's missing a lot of tackles. I think a scheme change is going to help him. Hence the linebackers. To me, the early tell is linebacker, plug those in, let Newman come back and play. Let the edge players cook. There, I said it twice. Let the edge players cook. There's one edge player going on year 2, that's a buy for me. The problem is everybody knows it. Abdul-Carter, the Giants. His rookie season, he only had 4 sacks. But the last 3.5 came in the last 5 games of the season. We don't always look at sacks. They don't always translate, but pressures do. He had 66 pressures. That was the most among rookies. Those pressures that I'm talking about, those were 8th best in the entire NFL. When you measure quickness to the ball, 2.5 seconds or less, he had 44 quick pressures. How's that for a stat? 44 quick pressures. That ranked first over 200 snaps. If you can get Abdul-Carter, maybe one of your friends, and people aren't really doing this right now. Believe me, I've tried. If you can get an Abdul-Carter because people were like upset because he only had 4 sacks last year, you do it now.
Yeah, no, for sure. Those edge rushers that you draft in the draft, with the draft being 2 days away now, so the draft 3 times in 1 sentence. How about that? They are kind of late bloomers, I think, in a sense. You'll have DBs that'll get on the field and have immediate production. Linebackers, 1 to 3 years. Edge rushers, I think that's second to third year or more so for fantasy, but second to fourth, that first end of the first contract. Steve has a great Edgecliff article. You want to plug that real quick, bro?
Yeah, every year I do, it's like an evergreen. I do the Dynasty H-Cliff article. So what you do is you look at players when they're going off the cliff. And Mase just kind of described it already. You know, edges, you always want to draft those guys young because once they become a Myles Garrett, good luck trading for that. You're not going to get them. Let's throw on a bye low year. Linebacker is more of a job security thing every couple of years. But, yeah, that's what I do. I look at the ages and I try to get off quick. Around 32 is when I'm trying to get off, 31, 32. But it's an excellent article. I do it every year. You can literally type in Google IDP H-Cliff so you can see it. Every year we do it over the Fantasy Six-Pack.
Well, moving over to the Lions, a couple of staples here for the IDP community in Hutchinson and Campbell. Outside of that, a couple of value picks here, but what are you thinking for the Lions come the draft?
So, yeah, again, this is one of those by the numbers. 18th total defense. Passing defense, they were 20th, and against the run, they were 14th. Middle of the pack, they were pretty good last year until around Thanksgiving when the Packers just lit them up, right? So that was kind of their tell last year. If I was to rebuild this team or look at this team, they need a defensive end. They need a top-end defensive end on the other side of Hutchinson. And then the other thing I think they can use, because Branch is hurt early on the year, if you look at that defensive back room, that secondary, I'm not really scared of those guys. I know Kirby Joseph puts up stats because he has to, but I'm not really scared of what they have back there. So a good defensive back that's flexible, that can play corner safety, and you can get that out of this draft class. That's what I think this team needs to kind of overload.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at their backup safeties, Eisen is a liability in coverage. Watched him in Tampa Bay last year. Roger McCreary's coming in. You got DJ Wanham as well on the line in rotation. He'll be good for best balls, but not a lot of like guys that you can set and forget. It's going to be a battle of the best and who gets on the field between Rodriguez and Barnes. So a lot of questions there. Chuck Clark also could get out in the field and take up space.
Yeah, like I was saying, the Packers put up 31 points on Thanksgiving on these guys. Like, they just walloped them. It was like this was one of those – and they still grind out 9 wins. So they have strong position groups. I was bagging on what I think they need, which is end and safety. What I like what they have is this linebacker core. And the more I think about it, you have some sleepers here, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. But they're kind of like the Cowardly Lion, scaring themselves last year. Just kind of not doing themselves any favors. They hot and running the last couple of years, man, but definitely just fizzled out last year. So excited to see how that ends up working out for them.
So with that linebacker core, it's fascinating based on what kind of league you're in. Everybody knows Jack Campbell, so I'm not going to waste airtime on that. You can go watch the other podcast, right?
Yeah.
Derek Barnes is a sneaky Sam linebacker because you get to play him at DL on Sleeper. He averages about 4 or 5 tackles a game. So if I'm in a 32 deep league, I'm making him my DL, and I'm going to win just based on that strategy. I've done that before in best balls. And then look for old Malcolm Rodriguez to come in there, right? He may be the other guy coming in there playing the old Alex Anzalone role. That's your guy. I've seen you pick him up a couple places.
So moving on to the Cheeseheads, the Packers. A lot of moves there for them in trading literally every draft pick they had for Michah Parsons. No, I'm just kidding. But they trade a lot for Parsons. They got Cooper stepping in. IDP community is loving them, like literally loving them, some Zaire Franklin this year. They add Hargrave to the middle. What do you think of the major needs here coming into the draft?
So I want to hang out with the Packers for a minute here. I want to talk about this team. This is another one of those coaching scheme changes that I find fascinating. So now we got Jonathan Gannon coming in, okay? Depending on what year you watched football, if you were there when he took that Eagles team to the Super Bowl, you like Jonathan Gannon. If you watched the last couple of years, maybe you don't. But he's another one of those Vic Fangio coaching tree guys. He's got a reputation of building and shaping elite defenses. More on that in a minute. But what he does is he'll start it. He usually works out of a 3-4 base. So he'll have a lot of heavy quarter concepts. He plays a lot more zone than man. Whenever you hear that, a team playing a lot more zone than man, it's usually wheels up for linebackers because their back is to the end zone and they're in zone and they're seeing the whole play. So expect a lot of tackle points from that linebacker position. I'm looking at Edge Cooper right now. I'm not chasing Zaire Franklin. In fact, I'm trying to sell him. I don't want Zaire Franklin, but Edge Cooper, I'm expecting big things out of. Yep. What is the difference between this team and the team you've seen? I mean, the Eagles team and the team you've seen with the Cardinals. The make or break point on his 3-4 Fangio style defense. The make or break point is going to be defensive end or edge. Okay, he didn't have much juice with the Cardinals, right? He had to bring in Josh Sweat. When he was with the Eagles, he had a little juice, right? So we're expecting big things out of Parsons, and Parsons is a buy for me right now. People aren't really I just traded for Parsons in one of my leagues because I guess he got hurt last year, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the phrasing I want to say is I'm buying the dip. He's coming off a 12.5 season despite missing, 3 games? You know, he had 4 more sacks. He had a couple more, 12.5. 16.5 would have been tied for second with Brian Burns, if he would have kept that pace up. At one point last year, he had the lead league in pressures. I believe it was like 60 or something. So, yeah, he's a hot name to own. The Packers, 12th defense in the NFL, 18th against the run, 11th against the pass. If you want to fix something, go with defensive tackle. I have no idea what you're going to get at Devontae Wyatt, and he could be somebody surging. But I'm kind of interested to see what they put there. But as far as my IDP studs, those are the 2 I want. And teams like this, linebacker and safety gobble a point. So don't forget about Xavier McKinney there. And based on how they play Nixon, if he's going to be a special teamer or not, he may be somebody. But those are the players I like to look at on this team.
Yeah, for sure. Lucas Van Ness, another name.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, Lucas Van Ness. Just because he got a sack in the wild card, injured for part of last year. I think he's in his contract year, if I'm not mistaken. They're going to be looking for big things from him. He kind of fell off at the end of 2024. Wasn't really sure what it was looking for in the future for him. He started off okay, and then I guess ended okay. So,
would you say, are you like in my best balls or my deep leagues?
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely down with that. Also, another guy you could probably get for peanuts on draft day, maybe a 2nd round or a 3rd round pick. If someone's sitting there thinking he's a roster clogger, and he might be, unfortunately. But I feel like if you're going to find out, it's either going to be this year or the year after this year because he might be on a new team, getting a new shot. So
with the case for Van Ness, I was trying to pull this stat up when we were talking. Yeah, Van Ness had 23 pressures off of 263 snaps. That's a good deal right there. Yeah. But he was also being nagged by that foot injury, so that could be an up-and-coming player, depending on how deep you want to go with it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, moving. I need to add one more here. Issue with file. That's awesome.
I got no more team schemes.
Okay, no more team schemes, so we're going fresh straight off.
We're going rapid fire now, my friend.
Rapid fire, okay. Talking about the Panthers here, Derek Brown's an okay name to have for IDP. Devin Lloyd gets added. Jalen Phillips gets added. Any thoughts here as the draft strategy for these guys? Because they are the NFC South winners from last year.
Yeah, I'm going to stick here a minute. Okay, so total defense 16th, against the run 20th, against the pass 15th. They can do a lot of things. My buy, and I just bought him in a lot of places. Jalen Phillips. I want Jalen Phillips. You said it with the Eagles part. I was waiting to see how far you went to go. All of those pressures last year. He landed pretty good. What is the top 90 percentile as far as expected sacks? He was really good. Now, this is kind of a joke for you, okay? Devin Lloyd, right?
Okay.
He's a buy and he's also a sell for me. Depending on what your team is and what you're trying to do, hear me out. He's going to eat with this terrible, terrible defense. He's going to eat, right? No, they're not that bad if you look at by the numbers. There's worse teams, but he's going to eat. He's going to get volume this year. You can probably get him, hold on to him, and trade him because he's probably in line for a top 15 linebacker performance, whatever. But he's always been a volume-based player, and he's always been a spiky week. So, yeah, look for that. That's probably a move I'm going to make when the season comes.
Yeah, for sure. Want to give a shout-out to Chow Wade-Smith. He played pretty hard last year. But I do think that DB is probably where they're going to have a lot of their focus, if not adding another edge out there with Scorton, who had a pretty good year last year.
I like where you're going. I think a team need to be safety. Also, linebacker, Dan Morgan.
One more in the mix.
Yeah. He played with the great Luke Kuechly. He knows a thing or two. He knows when he sees a good linebacker. So, maybe they can just keep retooling this thing.
Yeah, and I think they should. Their division's kind of up and coming. They did finish in a 3-way tie with the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Falcons, that's crazy. The Falcons, a real story of two sides. They had a better second half of the season than they did first. Buccaneers had a way better first half of the season than they did second. And the Panthers were just inconsistent as hell throughout the entire thing. So I'm sure they'll be looking to add to build on there with the names that they got as well in the offseason. Going to move on to the Rams here. Looking at the names they've got, they have one first-round pick in Jared Verse. Everyone else really kind of just fell to them in the draft. Braden Fisk, a great name as well, played with Verse at Florida State. What are you thinking for them? Because they mainly run one linebacker in Landman, right?
Yeah, so there's a glaring need on this roster. Two things that stick out to me, because this was, do you remember beginning of the year, this was, a magical season, and then it kind of just all fell apart. Total defense 17th, against the run 12th, against the pass 19th. Let's stick there against the pass. Two things that I remember when I think of this team. You remember that late, what was it, against the Bears? I can't remember if it was Monday. No, it was an NFC championship collapse against Chicago. Remember, he went back to pass, came in, and he threw the ball, and he caught it. So that, against their cornerbacks, a glaring need, and then the Seahawks kind of exploited that. But there were a lot of close games this year with a good cornerback, if they can get one. And they just they just picked up old dude, Trent McDuffie. So that could fix it, but it wouldn't be a bad idea to double down with that and maybe draft one of these great rookies. This is a good rookie cornerback class. So
yeah, which is insane because McVay's like, give me all of Kansas City's corners, adding Watson and McDuffie. I want to give Brian Young a shout as well. Kobe Turner, not a bad add in true position leagues. They run in 3 DBs as well a lot. Cameron Kitchens, Quentin Lake, Cameron Curl. Cameron Curl is also a nice name that people like to slide/forget about on draft day for some reason. Any final thoughts on this?
The teeth of this roster, if you look at the linebackers, well, you can call them edges, but if you look at it, the teeth here, Young and Verse were both Pro Bowlers, right? And right next to him is Landman, who should have been. So those are 3 unique players, and we all know Byron Young had a great season. I'm not buying into that yet. I'm happy it happened, but I wouldn't be trading. I'd probably be trading out on him. I seen somebody get a second the other day. I'm like, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, but yeah, that's the strength of this team right there, that front.
Yep, for sure. All right, we will move on to the Saints, who spent a first-round pick on Brian Brisset in 2023. Outside of that, Kool-Aid McKinstry, not a lot of IDP value on this team outside of the linebackers. Real quick, do you think Chase Young still has it, or are they going to be actively looking for someone to put aside?
He's in his prime window right now. Like I said, it takes these guys a little longer to peak. He got a chance to play, thank goodness, and he's starting to show. So that's a cheap one, and if you want a player on this team, there's not a lot of players like Chase on this team, but if you want a player on this team, Chase Young would be a good one because he's buried in ADP. And Caden Ellis, who's played here before, it looks like he's going to quickly transition there and take those DeMario Davis snaps. So that could be a strong player for you. This team was middle of the pack, total defense 9th, but the rush against the run, they were 19th. So I think defensive line help is where they're going to go in the draft. Pass defense, they were 4th. So even though, Justin Reed, Jonas Sanker, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Quincy Riley, it doesn't really scare me. They're a lot better than you think football-wise.
Yeah, for sure. Chase Young, looking at his pressures, he had 49 this year. It's not exactly what you want out of your, edge number one. But
to be fair, he didn't start till like halfway through. So
yes,
but yeah, I'm with you.
Mm-hmm. Didn't start till week 6. He had 35 snaps. It's kind of just been underwhelming as far as his career goes. However, his last 3 seasons have been his best. Hasn't been hurt as much, I will say. And he did have a 12-sack season last year, which is the most he's ever had, unlike his 3rd or 4th most highest pressures in the league. So I've never been one to be like
as a DL5 in a draft and play him as a DL3, you're gonna win more than likely.
He'll have some weeks. Like he's still one of those players that'll have, he had 8 pressures 1 week last year. So he's got, the spike ability. So obviously more so in best ball, set and forget. But if you need a guy in the middle of the season, he is a dude that has done it before. It's just kind of been the injury monkey on the back. Any other names here, though, that you want to talk about before we move on to the next one?
No, Sanker's interesting. You know that. I'm not chasing the Warners. I'm trying to get out of that. You might get somebody in your league that, hey, I know that name. But, yeah, nothing. I don't really care for this team defensively or schematic-wise. Yeah. But, yeah, the Chase Young I'll get cheap, and in Caden Ellis I'm always down for.
Yeah, moving into another team that I don't really care for just personally, but they are the Super Bowl champions of 2025. Yeah, boo. No, the Seattle Seahawks, give them their flowers. Great year. They completely embarrassed my 49ers on a national stage in our own stadium and they won the Super Bowl there. But I digress. Ernest Jones passed around like a volleyball at a Nickelback concert, ended up landing home, doing his thing. Julian Love stepping back in. Do you think that's a future for him, or do you think maybe he's on the way out?
So let's break this down. So dynasty-wise, all of those guys that you just said, the Loves, the Witherspoons, the Emanuelis, those are 3 top 15 defensive backs. It's exciting, right? Listen to this for stats. Seattle Seahawks, total offense 8th, rushing 10th, passing 8th. Let's talk about defense, 6th. Against the run 3rd, against the pass 10th. This is a pretty solid team. If I was to ask you team needs, and you're kind of already alluding to it, right? Sure, they're going to need a running back to replace old dude. Sure, you're going to need a wide receiver. If you want to hear about that, go to an offensive show. What we're going to talk about is defense. This team is loaded. If I was to nitpick, they lost a couple backups here and there, what have you. Maybe the secondary to replace players, and Mase already went there. Maybe replace maybe Love when he decides to leave, whatever. But 2 starters left in free agency, which is going to leave some decision-making on what we need to do. But, again, that's a prime role for Nick Emmanuel. Pick him up if you're able to. I don't know if you can. But, yeah, I think they need to restock the cupboard. They don't have many picks this draft. But, like, if they can get one of these corners or safeties, that's probably what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. They lost Boye Mafe, so I'm thinking that this could be Nwosu's year. I think he had 10 or 11 sacks last year. He's only done that one other time in his career. He's been there for a while, injuries back and forth. I kind of thought he was going to have a breakout year like 3 or 4 years ago, but he's still there, and I think he's still going to get like 500 to 800 snaps depending on his health and how they feel there. Like you said, they don't have a lot of draft capital, so if they add a guy, it'll be kind of in those middle rounds. The nitty and gritty guys are going to have to develop. But, I mean, they do have a defense that is championship caliber, so maybe development's the name of the game for them.
So, Nwosu, to your point, though, he tied for the team lead with 7 sacks. He's always a player you can get late, super late in drafts. And as far as the cream of the crop, we mentioned the Dynasty Linebacker podcast. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on Ernest Jones, but look at his overall casework. Look at his combined tackles. Look at the splash plays. That's a top-tier talent.
Yeah, I'm excited to see if they bring another linebacker in. Trice Knight was the side starter last year. Drake Collins kind of came in and swooped that towards the end of the year. So curious to see how that kind of unfolds as far as camp battles go. Because, I don't know, thinking about a defense who just won a championship, do you really want to, like, mess with that mojo, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you got to keep the band together, huh?
This is a weird year for me. Like, more people know about who played the halftime show than they did the score of the football game. So I'm in a weird time. You got Gen X's on a podcast talking about getting cooked. I don't know. This is a weird time in American history.
Oh, man. Speaking of getting cooked, the Vikings defense, looking at their defensive line, there's not a lot of meat on the bone there. Aside from Van Ginkel, we both love Van Ginkel. Honestly, one of the best at identifying screens off the edge, batting the ball, coming down with it, running over your quarterback, and scoring a touchdown. Linebacker there, Blake Cashman. What happened to Pace Jr.? He was there for a minute. Now Wilson's there. Wilson was decent for IDP leagues last year. Did they add another linebacker?
I've never chased Pace. I know people always had the hype, whatever. It was a nice story, but this is what they do to undrafted free agents. What I think linebacker they can get by another year depending on how you like Eric Wilson. It depends, but Cashman's going to be your guy. The defensive line, I think they moved on from Greenert, so look for Dallas Turner to be your guy. I guess our lads needs to catch up on what we know, right?
Yeah.
Jalen Redmond was incredibly sneaky to own, right? He had what? Him, Allen Hargrave had 13 sacks together. That was surprising. So that's a sneaky one. Where I think the draft goes, even though it doesn't look like on paper, defense third against the run, 21st against the pass second. I actually think a good safety, they can get away. Like if they can replace what they've had there previously with the Harrison Smith types, they use Metellus in that role. But if they can get I think it's Daniel Jeremiah, they got it predicted that Thieneman is going to end up drafted there. That would be a huge IDP selection, regardless of what round that is. So, yeah, I kind of think that, or maybe a cornerback, but that's what I'm thinking as far as team needs goes.
Yeah, I was thinking safety as well. There's a guy a couple years ago out of Georgia, Lewis Seen. He's one of those old school in the box safeties. He ended up getting injured and not panning out. I don't know if that leaves a bad taste in the mouth for them. I'd still like to see them have a bang in the box kind of safety, like you said, like a Harrison Smith or a guy that can do both, although those guys do not just grow on trees. This is our last team sitting here. Is there anything else you want to add on these guys before we start to wrap it up, bro?
Not at all.
All right, well, you just heard me and the real IDP Hunter run through 16 teams in under an hour, including introductions. Bro, we're getting pretty good at this.
Heck yeah. I don't have much more. I'm just I'm dragging. I'm on fumes. I'm trying to get to the draft. I'm excited. I told you before, I've said everything I need to say this offseason. Let's see some actual football and some players and see how that translates.
Yeah, for sure. I'm ready to take a break off watching film for, like a week before you put out another draft for the 2027 guys. That's going to be coming because someone's going to send one before May even breaks and not even give these guys a chance to land. If you had to give a new IDP person one piece of advice in starting their league, their first ever draft before we head out, what would you tell that person?
I do it all the time. You're going to make fun of me for it. Know your scoring. I map it out. I write it out. I look at the number of tackles, the solo tackles versus the sack, and then I add the QB hits, tackle for loss. Why do I do that? Why don't I add up anything else? Because I'm trying to gauge what happens at the end of a play. Is it a sack or is it a tackle? Because that in turn determines if I'm in a tackle-heavy league or a sack-heavy league. Do that every time, and it changes your rankings, does it not? It changes your rank. That's why there's so many different IDP rankings out there. But, yeah, give this side of the ball a try. It's incredibly fun. Chess, not checkers.
Always. And do not draft defensive backs. Fade defensive backs at all costs, even though I really like Caleb Downs this year, but I digress. My name is Mase Ronnie. You can find me on Twitter at CaliKing49er17. Steve, tell the people where they can find you, bro.
You can find me over at Fantasy Six Pack. We are doing a top 205 IDP full draft guide. You can get that now. It's weighted scores. It's our own scoring system. You can get that over there now. I'm also over on Fantasy Frames. I have all of the rookies ranked, and I'll be updating that as we go, after the draft ends.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say I'm a nerd, and I'm pretty proud of it. Revenge of the Nerd Court there for you. We are guys that play IDP. We are in the nitty and gritty. We are the other 65% of your TV. That is what we are looking at, and we are hoping that you join us in that. And I want to thank you for joining us tonight on the IDP Center with the real IDP Hunter. Make sure you type in that real for all the real ones out there. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you next time. Have some fun at the draft. Put your phones away, huh? Later.
Talk more there, everybody.